This is my character Selch Evensong on the server Laurelin. Selch is a member of the Coursera kinship. I will analyze the setting of Weathertop Summit across 3 different media: the book The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Peter Jackson's movie with the same title, and the settings in the game Lord of the Rings Online. Inside the game I chose to show 3 different scenarios: the quest mission Retake Weathertop, and walking up the hill without any quest on my own, as well as with fellow kinship members. We know that the book dedicated an entire chapter to the journey toward Weathertop. It combines a larger set of events the movie dealt with as separate actions and happenings. The way towards Weathertop Hills is described very detailed and gives us a great insight on landscape and geography around the region in Middle-earth. However, I will concentrate on the most important parts of the journey and compare the setting in all 3 media. I can't concentrate on the various differences in action and events or dialogue. These are totally different and not comparable between the game and the movie, also because the time setting is different in the game. Let me start with a passage from the book. They had not gone far on the 5th day when they left the last straggling pools and reed beds of the marshes behind them. The land before them began steadily to rise again. Away in the distance, eastward, they could now see a line of hills. The highest of them was at the right of the line and a little separate from the others. It had a conical top, slightly flattened at the summit. The surroundings of Weathertop Hills in the Lone Lands in the game are visualized in a detailed manner. You can stroll around the countryside freely and eventually encounter 1 or 2 foes or beasts. The silhouette of Weathertop is a prominent feature in this landscape. Everyone can easily spot the summit. This feature is pointed out in all 3 media. However, I did not find the construction in the movie as impressive as it was described in the book. My personal view is that the game designers did the better job here. The book describes a sheltered hollow where the hobbits enstride a camp for the night. One can guess the proportions from the scene in the movie when the camera zooms out the moment Frodo starts to trample down the campfire the others lit. I haven't found that shelter in game yet, but I admit that I did not search thoroughly. Unfortunately, the movie does also not provide a detailed insight on the landscape and focuses on a different part around the hills, which is actually also accessible in game, but I left it out of the video due to time. The landscape in the movie really looks like the riverbanks that part the marshes from the hills at Midgewater Pass. For the time setting, the movie does not exactly follow the book, because the group reached the mountain during daylight and descend to the summit in darkness, where the attack on Frodo happens, whereas in the book they reach the summit during daylight and get attacked during the night in their shelter. The game does get closer to the movie in this quest, because it takes place in darkness. Of course, if you decide to climb up the hill independent from any quest, you can go either in daylight or in darkness. I recommend witnessing sunset on the summit. Let me read 2 passages of the book stating on the views of Weathertop. If the riders fail to find us in the wilderness, they are likely to make for Weathertop themselves. It commands a wide view all round. Indeed, there are many birds and beasts in this country that could see us as we stand here from that hilltop. Not all the birds are to be trusted, and there are other spies more evil than they are. Standing upon the rim of the ruined circle, they saw all round below them a wide prospect, for the most part of the lands empty and featureless. Except for the patches of woodland away to the south, beyond which they caught here and there a glint of distant water. When you start climbing the hill, you certainly recognize the great view. The view in-game is breathtaking, although it is a virtual world. Here again, in the movie, everything seems a little smaller. The scene in the movie does not focus on the view, and therefore not so much on the possibilities. Even though the ring wraiths eventually get on Frodo because of the exposed location and campfire. The book mentions evil spies and explicitly names birds. There are birds in the movie, but they do not really show up during the scene on Weathertop. The game designers placed a couple of evil bird spies on the hill. This also goes well with the time setting of the game. The Fellowship had set off, and Weathertop was taken over by foes. This is also the content of the game mission Retake Weathertop. Let me read out some passages that describe the setting on the summit. But long before, in the first days of the Northern Kingdom, they built a great watchtower on Weathertop. Amonsul, they called it. It was burned and broken, and nothing remains of it now but a tumbled ring, like a rough crown on the hill's head. Yet once it was tall and fair. It is told that Elendil stood there watching for the coming of Gil-galad out of the west in the days of the last alliance. On the top they found, as Strider has said, a wide ring of ancient stonework, now crumbling or covered with age-long grass. But in the center a cairn of broken stones had been piled. They were blackened as if with fire. About them the turf was burned to the roots, and all within the ring the grass was scorched and shriveled, as if flames had swept the hilltop, but there was no sign of any living thing. We get a good idea on how the summit of Weathertop must look like. An ancient place, desolated and filled with old stones, grown over with grass. All in all, not a friendly place to be. In-game the place does not really look scary, but desolated. Even the crows cannot infuse life to it. The place starts to feel even more uncomfortable during darkness. During the mission Retake Weathertop it feels a bit scary when you are on the solo mission. The summit is filled with all kinds of evil foes you have to defeat. Here, the movie and the game get along quite well, because as I have mentioned earlier, the movie moves the whole event of Frodo's injury to the summit during the night. Peter Jackson's approach to transport the fear described in the book works out very well. However, if you come up with some friends and light a campfire, you will definitely have some fun, especially when you bring some musicians along. The details of the surroundings are astonishing, both in the movie and in the game. The stonework and remains of the tower are true to the descriptions in the book. Here again, the game beats the movie in detail. Let me read this last quote to you. Suddenly he stooped and looked at the stone on the top of the cairn. It was flatter than the others and whiter, as if it had escaped the fire. He picked it up and examined it, turning it in his fingers. The note, suspected to be left by Gandalf, was implemented into the settings in the game. Again, The game designers show a high dedication and detail where possible. All three media did a great job in visualizing a desolated and ruined place like Weathertop. Sprinkled with old stones that witnessed conflicts of a long-forgotten time, withered away halfway by exposition to the weather and plants that reconquered the area. The book is the true and original Weathertop as it had been pictured by Tolkien himself. As any piece of written or told narration that lacks visual material, it leaves the reader with the biggest freedom possible to fill the description with individual cognitive concepts and prototypes. Everyone who read the book has an own individual Weathertop in mind. Each of the visualizations, the movie and the game, has its strong and weak features. However, to me it seems that the game stays true to the book more than the movie does about the setting on Weathertop. The differences are logical consequences, because the game does not rely on order or duration as the movie does. Whereas the movie does not depend so much on spatial issues as the game does. If we don't consider mise en scene, which is of course obligatory for both the game and the movie. So the basic settings are found in the game and in the movie. These are the most important features, like the highest hill of a hill range, flat summit with ruins on top. The ruins are shaped like a circle crumbling about and overgrown by grass. Beyond these basic features, the movie had to diverge in order to get the story going on during the limited time, compromising on setting details and order of events to have a smooth storyline. The game focused more on the detail, making use of its independence from a smooth storyline, and therefore provides the possibility for the player to explore a Middle-earth that is in many ways and aspects true to the description of Tolkien. I know that some features are not detailed, like Bilbo's house in Bag End, as we had seen in one of our lectures, or the various inns along the roads. This is a different topic, but let me mention this one last thought I have about it. Providing a setting in an inn with less features creates much more room for the players to set up own narrative and role-playing. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of Weathertop. I will leave you now to some cheerful impressions from my journeys.